Hey there, it's CJ Willie and I'm cracking a pack. Today is pack number 22 in my science project of cracking a 1990 top Cello box. Check out my preview video for the explanation on how this science project will test the theory to see if I can build a complete set from a Cello box. I've added the link to my 1990 top Cello box preview video in the description below. With all of the packs that I crack, I will share my thoughts and memories about some of the players or cards. After I've cracked the pack, I'm going to choose the best card of the pack. That doesn't mean it has to be a rookie, superstar, or Hall of Famer. It can be something funny in the photo, something interesting about the player, or maybe some memory I had of the player from back in the day. Okay, we are down to our final 3 Cello packs. So the goal in these last 3 packs, since been able to get, I think, all the chase rookies except for like Bernie Williams and I think Marquise Grissom, is to avoid duplication. Seem to be getting a lot of duplicates lately. So gum came out in a couple of pieces, but we've been fortunate that it hasn't been sticking to the cards. Okay, let's get to cracking. Alright, first card out of the pack is Rich Montalone. Don't remember much about Rich Montalone. He probably didn't last in the majors too long, would be my guess. Make a small adjustment there. Okay, there we go. Next card, Willie Wilson. I think Willie Wilson was an underrated player. He was the starting outfielder with the Royals for quite a while. In fact, he had a phenomenal 1980 season. He had 230 hits, bunch of stolen bases, like 70 some odd stolen bases. Yeah, there we go. 1930. 230 hits, led the league tied with the lead, 15 triples, 79 steals, hit 326. Overall for his career, about a 290 hitter. Led the league a few times in triples and once in stolen bases till Rickey Henderson showed up, but was a pretty quality outfielder. Corey Snyder, he came up with a boom. His rookie card is 1985 Topps. He was featured in the Olympic set. He could hit a lot of home runs, but what he struggled with was strikeouts and average. He originally was an infielder, but had a lot of defensive problems, made a ton of errors. Eventually moved to the outfield and then spent some time as a DH. Randy Kutcher came up as an outfielder with the Red Sox. Didn't have much of a career. Ron Robinson, his cards always made me laugh. He had really bright orange hair, and playing with the Reds, I think kind of made his hair stand out even more. Seemed to be a pretty happy guy, as this is like a spring training photo with him smiling behind the spring training fence. Roger McDowell, he came out with the Mets. He formed part of a strong bullpen with John Franco. Franco was a lefty, McDowell was a righty, kind of a side armor. Here he moved on to the Phillies. Ruben Sierra, he had a lot of good stats, but he came up with the Rangers, had a decent playing career, was part of the A's. He was in the trade that the Rangers sent him to the A's for Jose Canseco. Tom Candiotti here featured gripping his knuckleball. He came up with the Brewers originally, had a so-so year, and then disappeared at the major league level for about 2 or 3 years. Eventually resurfaced with the Indians, and then spent a number of times as a kind of successful starter with the Indians and then Dodgers later on. Frank Viola, here pictured with the Mets. He came up with the Twins, was part of their 1987 World Series, and then was a big free agent signing by the Mets after the 1988 season. The Mets lost to the Dodgers in the playoffs in 1988. Actually, he was a trade. I thought he was a free agent signing. As you can see, he went from the Twins to the Mets. Jim Acker, mainly a middle reliever, spent some time at the Blue Jays and Braves. Mel Stottlemyre Jr., son of Mel Stottlemyre Sr., the pitching coach for the Yankees for a number of years, and brother of Todd Stottlemyre. Mel came up as a prospect. He just didn't pan out, spent very little time in the major leagues. He's actually followed in the footsteps of his father as being a pitching coach as well. Ed Nunez, middle reliever. Tony Phillips, he had an interesting career. Came up mainly as a utility guy and bounced around the infield and outfield with the A's, kind of subbing in. He later on, and it may have been around 89, established himself as a starter and had a pretty decent career as a starting infielder. It wasn't until about 89 that he started to really solidify himself as an infielder. He moved on to the Tigers and a couple other teams. Greg Harris, there were two Greg Harrises, and I would always get them mixed up. There's a Greg Harris that came with the Padres and then a Greg Harris with the Rangers. If I remember right, the Greg Harris with the Rangers was a starter, sometimes reliever, and this Greg Harris was more of a bullpen guy. I think one was Greg A. Harris and the other one was Greg W. Harris. Jose Canseco, showing off his flexed arm in the batting cage. He gets a really bad rap as the face of steroids, and it's probably well deserved. More than likely, he was the one that started the whole steroids deal in baseball. I doubt it, but it's more than likely. And then the ad cards sent away from one of the 6 sets that have 10 cards apiece. Okay, flip it around. Carlos Martinez, he came up as a pretty good hitting outfielder, struggled really defensively to find his niche. Here you can see he's the Topps Gold Cup rookie card. Interesting fact is his son is Jose Martinez, who came up with the Cardinals, had some pretty good success, and then in the offseason was traded to the Tampa Bay Rays. Carlos Martinez died quite a few years ago. I think it was some sort of an accident in the Dominican Republic, I want to say. No, Venezuela. Cito Gaston, manager of the Blue Jays, he was their manager when they won the World Series back-to-back in 92 and 93. Had an okay playing career. Don August, he was part of the 1985 Topps Olympic set. Had a little bit of success, but didn't really pan out. Pat Borders seemed to play forever. Came up with the Blue Jays as a catcher, was part of a platoon. As a right-handed batter, he didn't play as much because he'd only faced lefty hitters. He hung on and played well into his 40s. I think he's featured in some cards in the 2000s as well. Eric Shao, moderately successful starting pitcher with the Padres. Unfortunately, he became one of the more well-known documented deaths in baseball around this time. Committed suicide. Dave Stewart came with the Dodgers, was mainly a reliever with them. It wasn't until he got to the Rangers and his pitching coach, Tom House, taught him the split-finger fastball. Didn't really catch on with the Rangers, spent a little bit of time with them, then a year at the Phillies, signed on with the A's, and that's where his career took off. Very successful, leader of the rotation during the A's run of 88, 89, and 90. Won a World Series championship with them in 88. Moved on to the Blue Jays and won a World Series championship with one of their teams. It was either 92 or 93 team. Gary Sheffield. This is a year after his rookie. He was a rookie in 1989. He got the Topps Gold Cup. Sheffield started out as an infielder. Spent a little bit of time at shortstop. Ton of throwing errors, fielding errors. Moved to third base, and then eventually made his way up to the outfield. He had a Hall of Fame career, probably gets the steroids rap as well. He's never really come out and said yeah or nay if he did steroids, but he, has been one that hasn't been getting a lot of Hall of Fame votes because of the cloud of steroids around him. Bill Swift came with the Mariners. He found some success with the Giants later on in his career and then the Rockies. Matt Moore, he was part of the pitching rotation with Dave Stewart, Bob Welch, Kurt Young, that helped lead the A's to pennants in 88, 89, and 90. I don't remember when he moved over from the Dodgers. I want to say it was 88, but I'm not entirely sure. Oh, wrong guy. I'm thinking Bob Welch. Mike Moore, he moved over to the A's, yeah, in 89. Struggled with the Mariners because they were such a pitifully bad team, but his first year with the A's, as you can tell, in 89, went 19-11 and 261 earned run average. Mark Gubicza, I didn't like him. He was with the Royals World Series team in 85 that beat my Cardinals. Though Gubicza spent a number of years, relatively successful pitcher, moved on to the Angels in about 90 or 91, had a couple of good years and then retired. He's spent his time in, I think he's a color analyst or something in like Major League Baseball TV. Tony Armas, power hitting outfielder with the Red Sox, the A's, the Angels. His son, Tony Armas Jr., I want to say, was a pitcher with the Expos for a while. He was a decent player. Alvin Davis, I really liked Alvin Davis. He came out with the Mariners, had a lot of success early on in his first 3 or 4 years. Kind of the franchise of the offensive side of the Mariners, with Mark Langston being the pitching side. It looked like, Alvin Davis and Mark Langston would finally bring the Mariners out of just being a horrible team. Didn't really happen. The Mariners didn't take off until Ken Griffey Jr. showed up around 89. Like it hits back. He kind of disappeared out of baseball after a couple of years. Paul Molitor, Hall of Fame infielder with the Brewers. He was a pretty good player. It's interesting that Robin Yount stuck his entire career with the Brewers, and it looked like Paul Molitor was going to do it. I think it was either 91. I think it was 91. I think he left the Brewers. It wasn't as a trade, but as a free agent with the Blue Jays, and helped the Blue Jays win their 2 World Series in 92 and 93. Eventually moved on to his hometown team of the Twins and became a manager with the Twins as well. Lance Parrish, power hitting catcher with the Tigers, the Phillies, and Angels. He was an underrated power hitter. Was an all-star a couple of years. Can't remember how he did defensively, but he could definitely hit the ball a lot. Randy McCammett. I don't remember anything about Randy McCammett. And our final card of the pack is Dale Murphy. Dale Murphy should be a Hall of Famer. I've stated my case a number of times in different videos. He was the decade of the 80s dominant player. It was the next year after this that midway through the season, the Phillies needed some help in their pennant run and traded for Dale Murphy. The Braves were on a trajectory downward. Eventually, they turned it around and, as we all know, won the World Series in 1991. But he was start of kind of that trade to where the Braves shed a few of their veterans players and then started to build within with some of their upcoming rookies like Chipper Jones, etc. Anyway, this is going to be easy one. The favorite card, the best card of the pack, in my opinion, is Dale Murphy. I'm a huge Dale Murphy fan, even though I root for the Cardinals. Growing up, Dale Murphy was kind of who I idolized. Mr. Clean was his nickname. Great player. I mean, if you look at his performance during the 80s, it was between him and Mike Schmidt as who was the best player of the decade. He led the league in home runs a couple of years. He was an MVP, if I remember correctly, 2 times. Phenomenal player, and it's a travesty that he's been kept out of the Hall of Fame. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe and share. Give it a thumbs up, In the comments section, tell me who your favorite player was or who was the best card of the pack. Until next time when I crack pack number 23 from my 1990 Top Cello box. Remember, this is for science.